A civilization without telescopes mapped the stars with stunning accuracy. This is the story of the ancient astronomers who charted the heavens millennia before modern science. You will discover how human ingenuity alone unlocked cosmic secrets we are only now relearning. How did they track complex planetary cycles using only stone and shadow? What profound knowledge was lost when their world vanished? What does their forgotten legacy reveal about our own place in the universe? Long before cities or written language, our ancestors gazed upward with the same wonder we feel today. Deep within ancient caves, handprints rest beside painted creatures that some archaeologists believe are not just animals, but star patterns. These primal sky maps suggest a mind at work, one that saw more than random lights in the darkness. It saw order, the turning of the seasons, the migration of herds, the precise moment to plant seeds. These life and death rhythms were written in the celestial code. To survive, humanity had to learn to read it. This was the birth of astronomy, not in observatories, but in the lived experience of everyday life. For nomadic tribes, the moon was a flawless timekeeper. Its silent cycle from slim crescent to full luminous disk and back again carved the month into perfect, predictable segments. Expert analysis of carved bones reveals that these early people tracked the lunar phases with remarkable accuracy, creating calendars that guided their movements across vast landscapes. This knowledge was far too precious to be written down. It was woven into the very fabric of culture through stories, songs, and rituals, passed from elder to child across countless generations. In this world, the shaman was both spiritual guide and scientist, the keeper of celestial secrets. They were the ones who watched the sky, who connected the movement of a star with the coming of the rains, who developed the first counting systems to tally the nights between lunar phases. We see this same brilliant impulse all across the ancient world. Aboriginal Australians navigated by the emu in the sky, a constellation defined by the dark patches of the Milky Way. Native American tribes told stories of the Pleiades cluster to mark the changing seasons. These parallel discoveries show a universal human drive to find meaning in the cosmos. Think of your own life. Your year is still defined by the Earth's journey around the sun. Your months, though named differently, echo the moon's orbit. The 7-day week finds its roots in the 7 wandering celestial bodies visible to the naked eye. Our modern time is still, fundamentally, star time. This deep, foundational connection to the heavens set the stage for an incredible leap, from observing patterns to building monuments that could predict them. They were not a single empire but a recurring phenomenon, a type of civilization that emerged in the fertile crescents of the ancient world. Picture a society on the cusp of agriculture, where the first seeds of settled life took root. Their world was one of stone and timber, yet their minds reached for the infinite. These communities, scattered across continents from the sun-baked plateaus of Turkey to the vast deserts of the Sahara, shared a profound common trait, an obsessive drive to map the heavens. Their social structure was likely led by a priestly class, individuals who held power not through brute force but through their exclusive command of celestial knowledge. They were the architects of time, the interpreters of the gods written in the stars. A prominent historian notes that the debate continues to this day, whether this cosmic understanding sparked independently like isolated flames, or was a single, slow-burning torch passed along forgotten trade routes. For these people, astronomy was not a separate science, it was the very framework of existence. Their entire cosmology, their religious beliefs, their system of governance, and the rhythm of daily life were all woven into a single tapestry under the celestial dome. Knowing when the Nile would flood or when the spring rains would come was a matter of survival, and that knowledge was divined from the stars. This sacred connection between earth and sky demanded a physical expression, a permanent observatory. Their technological toolkit was deceptively simple, yet brilliant in its application. They used long, straight sighting rods to mark the horizon, water clocks that measured the passage of the night with dripping precision, and most famously, they arranged massive stones into perfect circles and towering alignments. At a place like Göbekli Tepe in Turkey, a site dating back over 11,000 years, we find massive T-shaped pillars arranged in circles, with intricate carvings that may chart the movements of stars and constellations. In the Egyptian desert, the stone circle of Nabta Playa stands as a silent testament to this same impulse, its stones aligned to the summer solstice and the brightest stars. Why would a society, with all the daily struggles of early civilization, invest generations of labor to haul and position multi-ton stones into such precise formations? The answer lies in the profound payoff, a mastery over time itself. This incredible investment in stone leads us directly to the ingenious methods they developed to track the cosmos with nothing but naked eyes and unshakable patience. These stone circles and towering monoliths were far more than ritual spaces. They were humanity's first great astronomical machines. Picture standing within one of these monuments at dawn on the longest day of the year. As the sun crests the horizon, a single, brilliant shaft of light pierces the darkness, sliding silently down a long, narrow passage to illuminate a single carved spiral deep within the tomb. For a few breathtaking minutes, the world of stone and the cosmos are perfectly aligned. This was not a hopeful guess. It was a precise prediction engineered into the very landscape. The builders used the distant horizon as their ruler and the movements of the sun, moon, and stars as their clock. To achieve this, they needed an almost superhuman level of patience and observation. Generations of watchers would have tracked a star's rising point on the horizon, noting how it shifted infinitesimally each day until it finally returned to its starting position after a full year. Marking that exact point with a massive, unmovable stone created a permanent celestial marker. Archaeoastronomers who study these sites are often stunned by the precision. The alignments at places like Stonehenge in England or the Mnajdra temples on Malta are accurate to within a tiny fraction of a single degree. This means the builders could distinguish a shift in a star's position equivalent to the width of a coin seen from nearly a mile away. The engineering itself was a marvel of its age. At Stonehenge, the massive lintel stones perched atop the great trilithons were carefully shaped and joined to create a level horizon line in the otherwise rolling landscape, an artificial baseline for their celestial measurements. Inside Ireland's Newgrange tomb, a special roof box was constructed above the entrance, a narrow window designed solely to funnel the light of the winter solstice sunrise deep into the central chamber. The Mnajdra temple complex offers a stunning case study. Its lower temple is a sophisticated solar calendar built from colossal limestone slabs. On the spring and autumn equinoxes, the sun's rays enter through the main doorway and precisely illuminate the central axis of the building. On the summer solstice, the light forms a distinct rectangle on a specific stone slab to the right, while on the winter solstice, the same effect occurs on a left-hand slab. The monument uses shadow and light as its ink, writing the dates of the year directly onto the stone itself. Think of the calendar on your phone or the watch on your wrist. They are abstract digital reminders of time. For these ancient astronomers, time was a physical, visceral experience, a beam of light that traveled across a dark chamber to announce the turning of the year. This mastery of the solar cycle was just the beginning. their ambition soon stretched beyond the sun to the more complex and mysterious dance of the moon and the fixed, distant stars. Yet the sun was only one actor on this vast celestial stage. These ancient astronomers also fixed their gaze on the stars, transforming the distant horizon into a giant, permanent measuring instrument. An observer would return to the same spot year after year to watch a specific star emerge from behind a familiar mountain peak. Its precise point of rising would shift almost imperceptibly with the seasons, but it would always return to its starting position, marking a complete cycle. This practice, known as horizon astronomy, required a staggering investment of patience, a tradition of observation passed down through generations. Cultural astronomers point out that these star paths were not seen as cold, mechanical lines. They were often woven into the very fabric of myth, where a star might be a returning ancestor or a powerful deity, making its annual journey across the world. The most critical stellar event was the Heliacal rising. This is the first dawn when a star, after being hidden by the sun's glare for many days, becomes visible again for a brief moment just before sunrise. This single, fleeting appearance served as a powerful alarm clock in the sky. In ancient Egypt, the Heliacal rising of the star Sirius was a moment of profound importance. Its glittering return coincided almost exactly with the annual, life-giving flood of the Nile River. For the Egyptians, the star did not just signal the flood, it caused it, announcing the time to prepare the fields and secure the harvest for the coming year. To ensure this celestial event was never missed, these early scientists created permanent observing stations. They might carve notches into a rock outcrop or position standing stones to create a precise sightline. An observer would sit or stand in a fixed position, lining up the notches to frame a specific gap on the horizon where the star was predicted to appear. Think of the commitment this required. A single person might spend their entire adult life watching for one star on one morning each year, recording its position to a tiny fraction of a degree, all to serve a civilization they would never see in its entirety. This deep, generational dedication to mapping the stars against the Earth's profile pushed human eyesight to its absolute limit, compelling them to invent the very first instruments designed to extend their vision beyond the naked eye. Their greatest instruments were born from a need to see what the naked eye could not. One of the most elegant was the Merkhet, used by the Egyptian temple astronomers. Picture a quiet courtyard under a blanket of stars. An apprentice holds a small, forked stick, while the master priest sights along a plumb line, a simple weight on a string. Together, they carefully align their tools with a specific star as it crosses the meridian, the invisible north-south line in the sky. This painstaking process, repeated night after night, allowed them to determine true north with astonishing accuracy, laying the foundation for the perfect cardinal alignment of the pyramids. This was not magic, it was precision engineering on a human scale. Their toolkit was built from everyday objects elevated by genius. The gnomon was just a vertical stick planted in the ground, yet by meticulously tracking the length and direction of its shadow throughout the day, they could mark the solstices, determine noon, and even calculate latitude. For telling time after dark, they used the clepsydra or water clock. This was a simple stone vessel with a small hole from which water dripped at a constant rate. Marks on the inside wall measured the passing hours, turning the relentless flow of water into a reliable measure of the night. For targeting specific stars, they used sighting tubes, nothing more than hollow reeds or drilled bones. By holding such a tube steady and blocking out peripheral light, an observer could pinpoint a star's position with far greater consistency. A prominent historian of science notes that the true sophistication lay not in the complexity of these tools, but in the profound conceptual framework behind their use. These were not just objects, they were embodiments of abstract ideas, geometry, and time. Knotted cords, for instance, were used to lay out perfect right angles on the ground, applying geometric principles to construct their monuments. Calibrated vessels ensured their water clocks kept a steady, predictable pace. This union of simple technology and deep knowledge allowed them to measure angles between celestial bodies, track the passage of seasons, and even predict terrifying events like lunar eclipses. The ultimate expression of this pre-telescopic genius is the Antikythera Mechanism. Recovered from an ancient Greek shipwreck, this complex bronze device is often called the world's first analog computer. With a system of interlocking gears, it could predict planetary positions, lunar phases, and the timing of eclipses years in advance. It stands as a stunning reminder that mechanical complexity was well within their reach, a peak of achievement that would not be rivaled for over 1,000 years. Where do we draw the line between simple technology and advanced knowledge? A sighting tube is just a hollow bone, but in the hands of a trained mind, it becomes a precision instrument for mapping the cosmos. It was this intimate understanding of their tools that allowed these ancient astronomers to produce star charts of such complexity and accuracy that we are only now beginning to decipher their full meaning. These maps were not just pictures of the sky, they were functional records of cosmic cycles, encoded with knowledge that governed entire civilizations. The celestial patterns they so carefully recorded hold secrets that go far beyond mere navigation, pointing toward a lost understanding of time itself. A leather scroll unrolled reveals not random dots, but a precise chart of the stars, each point connected by lines that form a sacred animal or a heroic figure. This was their library, their scientific journal, and their holy text all in one. The constellations they mapped were far more than simple patterns to aid in navigation. They were the living repositories of an entire culture's knowledge, holding its history, its laws, and its deepest moral lessons. To understand their star charts is to learn a lost language, one where every symbol carries a double meaning, both celestial and terrestrial. A myth about a great hunter pursuing 7 sisters across the sky is not merely a story. It is an observational record of the Pleiades star cluster and its movement through the seasons. Comparative mythologists have long been fascinated by how these same core stories of floods and heroes and cosmic serpents appear in cultures separated by vast oceans and thousands of years. This points to something profound, a shared human experience of the heavens that gave rise to parallel discoveries, or perhaps even whispers of ancient contact across continents we once believed were isolated. Deciphering these charts requires learning to see with their eyes. We must distinguish between art that is purely symbolic and art that encodes precise positional data. The Babylonian mole, pin tablets are a stunning example. These clay tablets are essentially an astronomical handbook, listing dozens of constellations and the specific dates they rise and set, creating a detailed, practical guide to the sky for agricultural and religious purposes. On the other side of the world, the Pawnee people of North America created a star chart on a buckskin that accurately depicted the patterns of the major stars, which they used to time their ceremonies and seasonal movements with the cosmos. One of the most magnificent celestial maps ever created is the Dendera Zodiac, a vast bas-relief carved on the ceiling of an Egyptian temple. It is a complex snapshot of the night sky, showing the constellations as the Egyptians knew them, including the familiar figures of Taurus the bull and Leo the lion, intertwined with their own gods and symbols. This was not decoration, it was a permanent record of cosmic order set in stone. We have to wonder, what deep knowledge have we lost by prioritizing written text over this kind of rich, symbolic art? We gained efficiency, but we may have sacrificed a holistic understanding of the world where science, story, and spirit were inseparable. This interpretive skill, this ability to read the sky as both a map and a myth, was the crucial foundation for their greatest practical achievement, the creation of calendars that could predict the turning of the world with unerring accuracy. Their star charts were more than maps, they were the blueprints for a profound achievement, the Lunar-Solar calendar. This was the ultimate act of cosmic harmonization, a way to force the sun and moon to agree on a single timeline. The lunar month from new moon to new moon lasts about 29.5 days. The solar year, the Earth's journey around the sun, spans roughly 365.25 days. These two cycles refused to line up neatly, creating a mathematical puzzle that challenged the greatest ancient minds. A priest standing before the community had to declare the start of a new month with absolute authority. He also had to ensure that the spring festival always fell in spring, and the harvest rites coincided with the ripening of the grain. If his calendar drifted, the entire rhythm of society would fall into chaos, with planting times missed and holy days celebrated in the wrong season. To prevent this, these astronomer priests developed a system of intercalary months, an extra month inserted into the year every few years to nudge the lunar calendar back into alignment with the solar seasons. This was not a random decision, it was the result of generations of meticulous record-keeping. They tracked the positions of specific stars like Sirius or the Pleiades, using their heliacal risings as celestial triggers to announce when it was time to add that vital 13th month. A calendrical historian would explain that different cultures arrived at similar solutions. The Babylonians and later the Greeks perfected the Metonic cycle. They discovered that 19 solar years is almost exactly equal to 235 lunar months. After this 19-year period, the sun and moon returned to the same relative positions in the sky. This cycle became the secret engine behind their calendars, allowing them to predict the need for intercalary months with remarkable precision. The process was a continuous loop of observation, prediction, and correction. They watched the sky, recorded the data, predicted the celestial movements, and then corrected their calendar to maintain its perfect sync with the turning world. This required a powerful central authority, a temple or a palace, to maintain and enforce the official timekeeping for the entire civilization. Across the ocean, the Maya developed one of the most sophisticated calendar systems ever conceived. They wove together multiple cycles, including a sacred 260-day count and a 365-day solar year, using a complex long count to track vast stretches of time. Their calculations of the solar year were even more accurate than the Julian calendar used in Europe at the time. How many of us stop to consider the legacy in our own pockets? Our modern Gregorian calendar, with its leap years and precise rules, is a direct descendant of these ancient struggles. It is a system refined over millennia, born from that primal need to harmonize our lives with the cosmos. This hard-won mastery over time paved the way for an even greater ambition to not just track the heavens but to foretell their most dramatic and terrifying events. The ultimate test of their celestial knowledge was not marking the seasons, but foretelling chaos in the heavens. A solar eclipse was the most terrifying event imaginable, the sun itself being devoured, plunging the world into an unnatural midday darkness. For the astronomer priests, predicting such an event was the pinnacle of their power, a demonstration that they could read the very mind of the cosmos. Imagine the palpable tension in a Mesopotamian city as the word spread. The priests had declared the moon would turn to blood. The entire community would gather, their eyes fixed on the luminous full moon. A dark curved shadow would slowly begin to creep across its face, a silent, unstoppable force. As the copper glow of totality settled, awe would mix with fear, but beneath it all was a thread of certainty. The wise ones had known, they had seen this pattern before. This predictive power did not come from understanding gravity or orbital mechanics, but from relentless generational record-keeping. Babylonian astronomers in particular were masters of this art. Their clay tablets covered in precise cuneiform meticulously logged every celestial event for centuries. Through this painstaking work, they identified a repeating cycle now known as the Saros cycle. They discovered that after a period of approximately 18 years and 11 days, the Sun, Earth, and Moon return to almost the exact same alignment, and a similar eclipse will occur. It was pure, brilliant pattern recognition. One Babylonian text chillingly notes, on the 15th day, the Moon will make an eclipse. It is a simple, confident statement born from centuries of watching and writing. This knowledge was a closely guarded secret, a source of immense political and spiritual authority for the temple. Across the world, different cultures developed their own explanations for the terrifying phenomenon. In ancient China, a celestial dragon was thought to be eating the sun, and people would bang drums and shout to scare the beast away. Norse myths told of two sky wolves, Skal and Hati, forever chasing the sun and moon, occasionally catching them. The ancient Greeks recorded the story of Thales of Miletus, who is credited with predicting a solar eclipse that occurred during a battle between the Lydians and the Medes. The sudden darkness was interpreted as a divine sign, shocking both armies into laying down their weapons and negotiating a peace. How does predicting the unpredictable empower a civilization? It transforms fear into order, chaos into a scheduled event. It proves that the universe, for all its apparent caprice, operates by knowable rules. This was the final, stunning synthesis of their art, where naked eye observation, meticulous records, and deep cyclical wisdom converged. It was a science perfectly woven into a spiritual worldview, where to predict an eclipse was not to challenge the gods, but to participate in their cosmic plan. This profound connection to the heavens, however, was not destined to last forever. A slow transformation was already underway, one that would ultimately sever this intimate bond and relegate their magnificent star charts to the realm of myth and mystery. The cosmos was not a distant scientific curiosity. It was the home of the gods. Every sunrise was a divine rebirth, every planet a wandering deity, and the Milky Way a shimmering river in the sky. This celestial realm provided the ultimate blueprint for how to live, how to build a society, and how to understand one's place in the universe. A pyramid was far more than a tomb. It was a colossal staircase, a ramp of light designed to launch the soul of the pharaoh directly into the company of the stars. Its perfect square base, aligned with the four cardinal directions, mirrored the perceived order of the heavens, bringing that divine stability down to earth. This idea of a cosmological hierarchy was absolute. The stars moved with a perfection and regularity that earthly life could only aspire to imitate. Kings and pharaohs across the ancient world claimed direct descent from the sun or other celestial bodies, their right to rule justified by this cosmic lineage. Their role was to impose that heavenly order upon the chaotic human world, to be the living link between the mundane and the divine. Planetary movements were never just astronomical events, they were urgent divine messages. In Mesopotamia, the planet Venus was the goddess Ishtar, a powerful and capricious deity of both love and war. Her appearance and disappearance from the sky, her brightness and her movements, were meticulously interpreted by court scribes. A brilliant evening appearance of Venus might be read as a sign of Ishtar's favor, encouraging a king to launch a military campaign. Conversely, If she seemed dim or vanished at an inauspicious time, it could halt entire armies, a celestial veto on human ambition. This astrological thinking permeated every aspect of life, from the highest affairs of state to the most personal concerns of health. Ancient medical texts from Babylon and Egypt directly linked ailments to the positions of planets and stars, prescribing treatments based on celestial alignments. Architecture was sacred geometry, with temples and cities laid out to reflect constellations or solar paths, making the entire community a mirror of the sky. A profound example of this cosmic mirroring comes from the ball courts of ancient Mesoamerica. The ritual ball game was not merely a sport, it was a reenactment of the eternal struggle between the forces of light and darkness. The solid rubber ball represented the sun, and the court itself was a model of the cosmos. Players, through their skill and sacrifice, participated in the celestial drama, ensuring the sun would continue its journey and the world would not fall into eternal night. Their astronomical knowledge, therefore, was not pursued for its own sake, but was a sacred duty, a form of piety. The immense labor required to build Stonehenge or the Great Pyramid was an act of devotion, a society's collective effort to touch the divine and secure its place within the cosmic order. We live in a world largely divorced from this mindset, so we must ask ourselves, what is the cosmic order we look to today? What grand narrative provides the ultimate blueprint for our laws, our ethics, our sense of purpose? For them, the answer was written in the stars, a constant, visible reminder of a universe filled with meaning and intention. This deep, spiritual drive to understand the heavens would eventually collide with a new way of thinking, one that sought to separate the gods from the gears of the cosmos, setting the stage for a revolution and a subsequent dark age for this ancient wisdom. That same celestial knowledge that anchored civilizations to the land also gave them the courage to lose sight of it entirely. Ancient mariners ventured across trackless oceans, guided by a single, unwavering truth: the stars above were more reliable than any map. Their confidence did not come from a magnetic needle, but from a deep, generational literacy in the night sky. They navigated by star paths, using the fixed positions of circumpolar stars like Polaris in the north as their immovable guideposts. Other constellations, like the Great Belt of Orion or the sweeping Scorpion of Scorpius, served as seasonal signposts, their rising and setting telling a sailor not just the direction but the time of year. This was a living, a mental map of the heavens, perfectly synchronized with the rhythms of the sea. Maritime historians point to the Polynesian voyagers as the undisputed masters of this art. Sailing vast double-hulled canoes across thousands of miles of open Pacific, they used a holistic system called wayfinding. They memorized the precise rising and setting points of hundreds of stars, creating a star compass in their minds. But their knowledge went beyond the celestial. They learned to read the subtle patterns of ocean swells, feeling the waves through the hull of their canoe. They watched the flight paths of seabirds, knowing certain species would always lead them back to land. They observed the color of the water and the composition of clouds on the horizon, each detail a piece of a grand navigational puzzle. A central technique for determining their position was latitude sailing. By measuring the altitude of a known star above the horizon, a sailor could determine how far north or south they had traveled. If the North Star rode high in the sky, they were at a northern latitude. If it hung low near the horizon, they were farther south. This required an intimate understanding of the sky's changing face throughout the year, knowing which star to follow on which route and in which season. The Vikings, crossing the treacherous North Atlantic, complemented their stellar knowledge with a remarkable tool, the sunstone. This was a crystal of cordierite or calcite that possessed a unique property. By looking through it and rotating it toward the sky, even through dense cloud cover, a navigator could locate the exact position of the sun based on the patterns of polarized light. This allowed them to find their cardinal directions on overcast days, a vital skill in the foggy northern seas. What does it mean to be truly literate in the language of the natural world? For these ancient sailors, every wave had a meaning, every cloud a message, and every star a name. Their mastery of the boundless sea was a direct and breathtaking result of their mastery of the infinite sky. This knowledge was far too precious to entrust to fragile clay or perishable papyrus alone. Its true vessel was the human mind, trained through a sacred system of oral tradition, an apprenticeship that turned living memory into a flawless library. Picture an elder astronomer, his face etched by years of sun and wind, leading a young initiate to a sacred stone circle as dusk descends. He points to the first glimmer of the evening star and begins to chant, not a simple prayer, but a complex song whose rhythm and rhyme encode the star's precise path, its companions, and the season of its return. This was not casual storytelling, it was a rigorous science of memory. The entire structure of knowledge was built for transmission. Complex astronomical data, from the 19-year Metonic cycle to the rising of Sirius, was woven into epic poems and ceremonial songs. The rhythm and melody acted as powerful mnemonic devices, making vast sequences of information almost impossible to forget. Experts in oral cultures note that information embedded in a story is recalled with significantly greater accuracy than a simple list of facts. A myth about a hero's journey could simultaneously describe a constellation's movement, a planet's retrograde loop, and the correct time for planting barley. This system was protected by a strict hierarchy. A novice might first learn the simple names of the constellations and their associated tales. After years of proven dedication, he would be taught the deeper layers, the numerical relationships hidden within the verses, the secret formulas for predicting an eclipse. The most advanced calculations, the true core of their predictive power, were reserved for a select few, ensuring this powerful knowledge did not fall into unprepared hands. We see this brilliant method perfected in indigenous Australian songlines. These are not merely songs, they are intricate acoustic maps of the land. A single songline can describe a navigation route hundreds of miles long, noting water sources, mountain ranges, and crucially, the celestial bodies that guide the traveler from one point to the next. The stars are permanent characters in this ongoing epic, their positions dictating the rhythm of the journey across the continent. What happens to a civilization when its library is not made of books but of people? The death of a single elder without a fully trained successor could erase centuries of accumulated observation, a loss from which there was no recovery. This profound fragility is what makes their surviving monuments all the more astonishing. The stone circles, the pyramid alignments, the carved star charts, these were the permanent, physical backups for their living knowledge. They were the unchanging reference points that anchored the fluid poetry of the songs to the immovable reality of the cosmos. This deeply ingrained system of memory and mentorship ensured their celestial wisdom could endure for generations, creating a legacy so stable it would eventually be challenged by its own greatest innovation, the written word. The stone circles were just the beginning, a prelude to an architectural ambition that would consume entire civilizations. From the deserts of Egypt to the mountain peaks of Peru, ancient builders inscribed their cosmic knowledge directly into the landscape, creating structures so vast and so precisely aligned that they remain a profound mystery. Stand on the central platform of Machu Picchu at dawn on the June solstice. As the sun rises over the distant peaks, a single, razor-sharp beam of light slices through a strategically placed window in the Temple of the Sun, striking a ceremonial stone at the heart of the sanctuary. In that moment, the Inca emperor was not just a ruler, he was a mediator between earth and sky, his authority literally illuminated by the sun itself. Architectural historians emphasize that this was no happy accident. The intentionality behind these designs required generations of precise surveying and a deep, accumulated wisdom of solar and stellar paths. This celestial architecture served a powerful trifecta of purposes. It was a giant, immutable calendar marking the seasons for agriculture. It was a physical symbol of a divine cosmic order, bringing the perfection of the heavens down to earth. And it was a brilliant political statement, demonstrating the ruler's unique power to command the very forces of the cosmos. We can break these alignments into two primary categories, solar and stellar. Solar alignments are the most widespread. At the Karnak temple complex in Egypt, the massive axis was oriented so that on the winter solstice, the rising sun would shine directly down the long corridor of columns, illuminating the inner sanctuary where the statue of the god Amun-Ra resided. It was as if the sun god himself was entering his home. Stellar alignments, however, required an even deeper understanding of the fixed stars. The Great Pyramid of Giza contains narrow shafts, once dismissed as ventilation, that are now known to point directly toward specific stars. One southern shaft targeted the star Sirius, associated with the goddess Isis, while a northern shaft was aimed at the circumpolar stars, the so-called imperishable ones that were linked to the eternal soul of the pharaoh. This practice was a global phenomenon. In Chaco Canyon, New Mexico, a spiral petroglyph is carved high on a cliff face. For most of the year, it is just a pattern in the stone. But at noon on the summer solstice, a dagger of sunlight pierces a gap between two giant rock slabs, projecting a sliver of light that perfectly bisects the spiral. This sun dagger acted as a precise solar calendar for the ancestral Pueblones. On the other side of the world, the Buddhist temple of Borobudur in Indonesia is a massive three-dimensional mandala. Its terraces and stupas are arranged to mirror the Buddhist cosmology, and its alignment with certain stars would have guided pilgrims on a spiritual ascent that paralleled the celestial journey. A stunning case study is Angkor Wat in Cambodia. The entire temple complex is a microcosm of the Hindu universe. Its central towers represent the mythical Mount Meru, the axis of the world. The surrounding moat symbolizes the cosmic ocean, and crucially, the main western gateway is aligned so that on the spring equinox, an observer standing at the entrance sees the sun rise directly over the central tower. The whole city was a clock, a calendar, and a map of the heavens carved from stone. We now build skyscrapers that scrape the sky, monuments to commerce and technology. But what do their alignments say about our values? They are oriented toward street grids and financial districts, not the path of the sun or the turning of the stars. These ancient stone testimonies ask us a silent question. Have we gained the world while losing the cosmos? They stand as the most durable evidence we have of a time when humanity looked upward not just to wonder, but to build its world in the heavens' perfect image. This celestial conversation, etched in stone and shadow, reveals a final, unsettling truth about the civilization that charted the stars. Their knowledge was so advanced it created a calendar more accurate than any that would follow for over 1,000 years. Behind their star charts and stone alignments lay a hidden engine, a silent language of numbers that gave order to the cosmos. For these ancient astronomers, mathematics was not an abstract exercise. It was the very syntax of creation, the code in which the gods had written the universe. In a dimly lit chamber, a scholar would press his stylus into wet clay, not to record a king's decree, but to trace a geometric proof that could predict the moon's path. His work was a fusion of the practical and the sacred. He used a hands-on geometry to measure angles between stars and distances on the ground, but he also practiced a sacred numerology where certain numbers and ratios held divine power. A historian of mathematics would explain that their entire world was built on this principle, that the same mathematical harmonies that governed music and architecture also ruled the motions of the heavens. We see this in the pervasive use of pi, the constant ratio of a circle's circumference to its diameter. The Great Pyramid's perimeter divided by its height gives a value remarkably close to 2 times pi, suggesting its builders encoded this fundamental relationship into the structure's very shape. The golden ratio, a special proportion found in spiraling shells and branching trees, also appears in the layout of ancient temples, mirroring a belief that human creations should reflect the natural and cosmic order. Even Pythagorean triples, sets of 3 whole numbers that perfectly describe the sides of a right-angled triangle, were used millennia before Pythagoras to lay out perfect square foundations for their monuments with nothing but knotted ropes. Their calculations of celestial cycles were feats of patient pattern recognition. To determine the length of the solar year, they did not have a single starting point. Instead, they used iterative approximations. They would observe the sun's position at a solstice, mark it, and then observe it again the following year, and the year after that, slowly refining their count of the days. Over centuries, this process yielded a value for the solar year that was accurate to within minutes. They applied the same relentless method to the slow, grand wobble of the Earth's axis, known as the precession of the equinoxes. This cycle, which takes nearly 26,000 years to complete, was detected by comparing their own star records with those of their ancestors, noting that the equinox sun was gradually rising in a different constellation. To achieve such precision, they developed sophisticated mathematical tools. The Babylonians gifted us the base 60 number system. This sexagesimal system was brilliant for calculation because 60 is divisible by so many numbers, making fractions easy to work with. This is the sole reason we still have 60 seconds in a minute, 60 minutes in an hour, and 360 degrees in a circle. They used these fractions to track planetary periods with stunning accuracy, creating mathematical tables on clay tablets that could predict the positions of Jupiter or Venus years in advance. Think about the calculator on your phone. It gives you an answer instantly, but it requires no deep understanding of the relationships between numbers. These ancient mathematicians lived and breathed those relationships. They felt the rhythm of the cycles in their bones, seeing the same geometric forms in a temple's layout and in the path of a planet. This intimate, hands-on knowledge of number as a living force was what made their celestial science so enduringly precise, a legacy now silently embedded in our own measures of time and space. A priest on a windswept Andean peak and a scholar in a Mesopotamian ziggurat separated by an entire world could have held the same number in their minds, the precise length of the solar year. They never met, traded goods, or shared a single word, yet their calculations converged. This is the great puzzle of parallel discovery, where isolated human minds gazing at the same sky decoded identical cosmic laws. Anthropologists call this psychic unity, the idea that all humans share a fundamental cognitive toolkit. When presented with the same raw data, the orderly procession of stars and planets, different cultures independently developed similar frameworks to explain what they saw. The zodiac is a stunning example. In both ancient Babylon and pre-Columbian Mesoamerica, astronomers divided the sun's path through the sky into 12 or 13 sections, each associated with an animal or symbol. They created this belt of constellations to track the sun's annual journey, a conceptual tool born from the same need to map the cosmos. Another profound parallel is the understanding of planetary retrograde motion. To the naked eye, a planet like Mars will occasionally slow down, reverse its course for a few weeks against the backdrop of stars, and then resume its forward journey. This bewildering behavior was observed and meticulously recorded by both the Greeks and the Maya. Each developed their own complex models to explain this apparent defiance of the celestial order, proving that human logic, when applied systematically, can unravel even the most perplexing cosmic dances. We see this same intellectual convergence in their monuments. The great stone Rose of Karnak in France, aligned to the solstice sun, find a distant echo in the towering moai of Rapa Nui, which are also positioned to mark seasonal changes. These colossal stone sentinels, raised by cultures with no conceivable connection, represent the same impulse to build a permanent, earthly reference to the heavens. Perhaps the most breathtaking parallel lies in the realm of mathematics. The Maya, in the jungles of Central America, and ancient scholars in India, independently arrived at one of the most abstract and powerful concepts in human history, the number zero. This was not merely a placeholder, but a profound philosophical and mathematical entity that allowed both civilizations to create incredibly complex calendar systems and make precise astronomical predictions over vast stretches of time. So what does this tell us about science itself? It suggests that the drive to understand the universe is a fundamental part of being human. The scientific method, in its essence, is not a European invention, but a universal human process, one that begins with careful observation and culminates in logical explanation. These separate paths to the same truth reveal a shared human genius, a collective intellect that was probing the depths of reality long before we considered ourselves a global community. This universal drive to map the heavens, however, would eventually confront its greatest challenge, not from a lack of curiosity, but from a profound shift in the very fabric of society that would cause this hard-won knowledge to fade into obscurity. Such brilliant celestial knowledge did not vanish in a single, catastrophic fire. It faded like a star at dawn, its light extinguished by a slow, relentless tide of change. The library of the ancient world was not one building, but a distributed network of fragile clay tablets, delicate papyrus scrolls, and most critically, the living memory of a trained elite. When that chain of transmission was broken, entire chapters of human understanding were erased. A master astronomer might die in a siege, his apprentice cut down by plague, and the precise formulas for predicting an eclipse died with them, becoming first a legend, then a forgotten rumor. The loss was a complex tapestry woven from multiple threads of disaster. Societies that had built the great observatories collapsed under the strain of prolonged drought, famine, or invasion, their centralized authority shattering and taking their scientific institutions down with them. Historians of science point to the burning of the Library of Alexandria as a symbol of this fragility. While its destruction was likely a gradual process, the event represents the incalculable loss of scrolls that may have contained the accumulated astronomical records of centuries, the raw data of the cosmos turned to ash. But physical destruction was only one part of the story. A profound shift in worldview was perhaps even more decisive. As large, centralized empires gave way to new social orders, the focus of human thought underwent a radical transformation. The geocentric universe, where Earth was the center of a divine cosmic drama, began to be replaced by an anthropocentric one, where the primary concern was not the motion of planets, but the salvation of the human soul. The cosmos was no longer a living, sacred text to be read, but a mere creation, a backdrop for a more personal spiritual struggle. This new paradigm had little use for the complex calculations of pagan star priests. In some cases, their knowledge was actively suppressed by rising monotheistic religions that saw it as a dangerous rival to their own doctrines. the intricate celestial myths were dismissed as superstition, the observatories abandoned as sites of idolatry. The specialized nature of this knowledge made it uniquely vulnerable, held by a small, privileged class and often encoded in secretive languages or rituals. It was never fully integrated into the common understanding of the population. When that elite class was dispersed or dismantled, there was no broad foundation of knowledge to preserve it. The result was a great forgetting. In Europe, much of the classical learning, including astronomy, was preserved not in its own monasteries but in the great libraries and translation houses of the Islamic world, where scholars meticulously studied and expanded upon the works of the Greeks and Babylonians. For centuries in the West, the sophisticated Lunar-Solar calendars and eclipse predictions of the ancients were replaced by a simpler, more theologically acceptable model of the heavens. We have to ask ourselves what parallels exist today. Our own civilization relies on digital data stored on media that could become unreadable in a generation, and on highly specialized knowledge understood by only a handful of experts. Are we, in our own way, equally vulnerable to a great forgetting? This profound loss makes the modern rediscovery of their achievements not just an archaeological curiosity, but a dramatic recovery of a lost part of our own intelligence. The silent stones finally found their voice in the 20th century, not through magic but through mathematics. A new field of science emerged, one that dared to ask the stones what they knew. This is Archaeoastronomy, a discipline built on a radical collaboration. It brings together the trowel of the archaeologist and the telescope of the astronomer to listen to the whispers of the ancient sky watchers. At a remote site like Newgrange or Chichen Itza, you might see a team huddled around a laptop as the sun rises. They are using high-precision GPS to map the exact position of a standing stone, then feeding that data into software that can wind back the cosmic clock, recreating the precise arrangement of stars from 5,000 years ago. This scientific partnership is the key. The archaeologist provides the context, the dating, the cultural understanding of the people who built the site. The astronomer provides the celestial data, the knowledge of how the sky has slowly changed over millennia. Together, they test a hypothesis. Does this passage align with the winter solstice sunrise? Does that window frame the summer solstice sunset? The answer is no longer a matter of speculation. It is a matter of measurable, verifiable fact. Pioneers like Gerald Hawkins, who first analyzed Stonehenge with an early computer, and Anthony Aveni, who studied the astronomical traditions of the Americas, established the rigorous methods that define the field today. Their crucial insight was that you cannot simply look at one alignment and declare a site an observatory. You must use statistical analysis to determine if the number of alignments is greater than what would be expected by pure chance. If you have a circle of 30 stones, random chance might allow one or two to point to a significant solar position. But if 10 stones align with major solar, lunar, and stellar events, the probability that this is an accident becomes vanishingly small. This statistical backbone is what separates solid science from romantic fantasy. The modern archaeoastronomer's toolkit is a blend of space-age technology and old-fashioned patience. Laser theodolites measure angles with microscopic precision. Three-dimensional laser scanning creates a perfect digital replica of an entire site, stone by stone, allowing for analysis without ever touching the fragile originals. Then, sophisticated planetarium software like Stellarium takes over. It can remove the light pollution and atmospheric distortion of the modern world, showing the ancient sky in pristine detail, and can calculate the slow wobble of the Earth's axis, known as precession, to reveal what stars were dominant when the monument was built. This rigorous approach has unlocked mysteries around the globe. In Peru, the vast Nazca lines, those giant geoglyphs etched into the desert floor, were once thought to be landing strips for aliens. Archaeoastronomers like Maria Reich, however, demonstrated that many of the lines point toward the horizon where the sun, moon, and specific stars would rise or set during important agricultural festivals. They were ceremonial pathways aligned with the cosmos. In France, the sprawling, chaotic rows of thousands of stones at Karnak were mapped and analyzed, revealing that the entire complex appears to be a gigantic astronomical device, with multiple alignments marking the extreme rising and setting points of the moon over its 18.6-year cycle. Even modern monuments are subject to this scrutiny. The recent destruction of the Georgia Guidestones, a granite megalithic structure erected in 1980, sparked intense debate. Were its alignments intentional, designed to track the sun like its ancient predecessors, or were they merely aesthetic? Archaeoastronomers would apply the same tools, measuring the alignments and running the statistical models, to determine if this modern enigma truly echoed the old ways. So what changes when we view the past through this scientific lens? It transforms our history from a simple timeline of kings and battles into a far richer story of human intellect. We are no longer looking at primitive people huddled in fear of the dark. We are recognizing colleagues across the centuries, brilliant minds who used the tools they had to solve the greatest puzzles of their universe. Their legacy is not just in the stones they left behind, but in the very method we now use to understand them, a testament to the enduring human drive to find our place in the cosmos. The allure of a perfect, lost civilization or alien architects offers a seductive shortcut through the complexities of history. It is far simpler to believe in a single, superior source for all ancient genius than to accept the slower, messier truth of human ingenuity evolving across countless generations. Yet this desire for a simple answer diminishes the profound reality. The greater wonder lies not in imaginary supermen, but in the demonstrable brilliance of people who, with patience and intellect alone, mapped the heavens. Applying the principle of Occam's razor, the simplest explanation that fits all the evidence is usually the correct one. In this case, the evidence overwhelmingly points to human innovation, not extraterrestrial intervention. A skeptical investigator would remind us that extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence, and the evidence for ancient aliens consistently crumbles under scientific scrutiny. Take the idea that the Great Pyramid of Giza was a power plant. This theory ignores the mountain of archaeological evidence found within and around the structure, from the funerary barges to the graffiti left by the work crews, all of which confirm its role as a monumental tomb for a pharaoh. The mainstream consensus, built on decades of peer-reviewed research, sees the pyramids as the ultimate expression of a society's religious belief and political organization, not as pieces of advanced technology. Similarly, the Piri Reis map, often cited as proof of ancient global exploration, is a fascinating document, but it does not show Antarctica free of ice. Analysis reveals the landmass it supposedly depicts aligns more closely with the speculative coastlines of South America, drawn from a compilation of earlier maps available to the Ottoman admiral. There was no need for a prehistoric global survey. The map is a product of its time, a masterpiece of cartographic synthesis from known sources. A classic case of misinterpretation is the so-called Baghdad Battery. This clay jar, found with a copper cylinder and an iron rod, sparks the imagination as a possible ancient electrical cell. However, the mainstream archaeological view, supported by the context of its discovery, suggests it was far more likely a storage vessel for sacred scrolls. No wires, no electrical devices, and no contemporary descriptions of such technology have ever been found alongside it. The simplest explanation is that it held scrolls, not that it generated power. Why are we so quick to hand the achievements of our ancestors to visitors from another world or a fictional super-civilization? Is it because accepting that humans alone accomplished these feats places a greater responsibility on us to understand our own potential? When we clear away the pseudoscience, we are left with something far more valuable, a genuine appreciation for the resourcefulness, dedication, and sheer intellectual power of the people who came before us. Their legacy is not a mystery to be solved by aliens, but a testament to the boundless capacity of the human mind. A medieval monk, hunched over a parchment in a cold scriptorium, was copying not a prayer, but a set of planetary tables. The numbers were foreign, the language Arabic, but the data itself was ancient Babylonian, a celestial legacy that had survived the fall of empires. This quiet, relentless work of translation was the fragile bridge across the Dark Ages, carrying the tools for a revolution. While much of the nuanced stargazing of the ancients was forgotten, their core mathematical instruments and most precious data sets endured. Islamic scholars in Baghdad and Cordoba became the vital curators of this knowledge, not merely preserving Greek geometric models and Babylonian arithmetic, but refining them with new observations and critiques. They gave us the language of algebra and the names of many stars we still use today, from Altair to Betelgeuse. When these enriched texts finally filtered into Renaissance Europe, they landed on the desks of thinkers who were ready to ask new questions of old numbers. The Danish nobleman Tycho Brahe embodied this direct lineage. Working decades before the telescope, he constructed massive brass quadrants and towering sextants, instruments that were the pinnacle of the ancient tradition of naked eye measurement. His meticulous charts of planetary positions, unprecedented in their accuracy, were a direct continuation of the Babylonian ethos of relentless, precise record-keeping. Historians of science point to a stunning modern application of this ancient data. By comparing Babylonian records of solar eclipses from the 8th century BC with modern calculations, astronomers have detected a tiny but consistent discrepancy. This gap provided the first solid evidence that the Earth's rotation is gradually slowing down, adding a fraction of a second to our day over centuries. The very coordinate system we use to map the sky, the ecliptic with its 12 zodiacal signs, is a Babylonian grid we still project onto the cosmos. This unbroken chain of observation culminates with Johannes Kepler. Tormented and brilliant, Kepler was handed Tycho's treasure trove of data, a legacy of positional measurements rooted in a tradition millennia old. He spent years trying to force Mars into a circular orbit, adhering to ancient Greek ideals. But the numbers, the beautiful, stubborn numbers passed down from the watchers of Babylon, would not comply. They led him instead to his revolutionary laws of elliptical orbits, a truth hidden in plain sight for thousands of years. So we must ask, can any great leap of science ever truly be disconnected from the past? The heliocentric model was not a spontaneous invention, but a new pattern recognized in an ancient tapestry of data. Every modern discovery about exoplanets or galactic rotation rests upon this foundational calendar, this first map of the sky, drafted by human hands and human patience alone. Their legacy is not merely in the stones they left behind, but in the very structure of our scientific mind. This living star knowledge did not vanish with the ancient monuments. It survives today in the oral traditions of indigenous cultures around the world, where elders are fighting to protect a heritage that holds profound lessons for our modern existence. In a quiet village, a knowledge keeper points to the shimmering band of the Milky Way, sharing with a new generation the story their own grandparents told them. It is not just a tale, but a complex map of seasonal change, animal behavior, and community law, all woven into the celestial patterns. An indigenous scholar explains that this wisdom is fundamentally holistic. The rising of the Pleiades does not just mark a date on a calendar. It signals the time when a certain fish will spawn or a particular plant will be ready for harvest. This is a science where astronomy, ecology, and ethics are inseparable, a system that understands humanity as one thread in a vast, interconnected web of life. To lose this knowledge is to lose a unique lens for viewing the universe, one that offers solutions for sustainability and environmental balance. Global initiatives are now working to ensure this second loss never happens. The International Dark Sky Association partners with indigenous communities to create dark sky preserves, protecting the pristine viewing conditions essential for both scientific astronomy and cultural practice. Universities are establishing new partnerships, bringing elders into the classroom to teach alongside astrophysicists, creating a dialogue where Western science and indigenous knowledge can enrich one another. In New Zealand, the Maori have successfully championed the official recognition of their astronomical tradition, known as Matariki, as a national holiday. This celebration of the Pleiades cluster's heliacal rising reaffirms a cultural connection to the environment and the cycles of renewal. Technology is becoming a vital ally in this preservation effort. Digital storytelling projects archive the voices of elders, while interactive apps allow young people to point their phones at the night sky and see the constellations labeled not with Greek myths, but with the stories of their own ancestors. This living heritage asks us a reflective question. In a world facing ecological crisis, what can we learn from a worldview that does not see the cosmos as a dead void to be conquered, but as a living relative to be respected? This bridge from the ancient past offers not just a glimpse into history, but a guiding star for a more balanced and connected future. That same drive to understand a complex system, whether built from stone or code, connects the ancient sky watcher to the modern software engineer. An architect adjusting a monolith by a hand's breadth to capture the solstice sunrise was engaged in a form of iterative design, a process of trial and error that any tech developer would instantly recognize. Both are building a model of reality, testing it against observation, and refining it until it predicts the world with stunning accuracy. A prominent physicist has noted that this system's thinking, seeing the universe as a set of interlocking, predictable patterns, is the very bedrock of modern science, and its roots are ancient. We see this parallel clearly in the realm of data. The Babylonian priests who logged planetary positions on clay tablets for centuries were essentially creating a massive, long-term database. Their search for recurring cycles, like the Saros period for eclipses, is a direct ancestor of a modern-day data scientist running algorithms to find patterns in vast streams of information. Both are using historical data to build a predictive model of the future. The principles of navigation reveal another profound link. The Polynesian wayfinder who triangulated his position by the rising points of stars was performing a celestial version of the triangulation that your smartphone's GPS uses today. Instead of stars, your phone locks onto signals from multiple satellites, calculating your exact position by the minute differences in the time it takes for each signal to arrive. The underlying geometry is identical, a testament to a universal logic that transcends technology. This connection extends into our search for sustainability. The study of ancient practices often tied to astronomical cycles is now inspiring green technology and architecture. The passive solar design of a modern energy-efficient home, with its south-facing windows to capture low winter sun and overhangs to block the high summer heat, is a direct application of principles mastered by the builders of the Mnajdra Temple or the cliff dwellings of Mesa Verde. They understood how to use the sun's path as a free, reliable source of heating and cooling, a wisdom we are now urgently relearning. This approach, looking to ancient and natural systems for efficient solutions, is known as biomimicry. We see it in the design of wind turbines inspired by the bumps on a humpback whale's flippers, and we see it in the revival of ancient water harvesting techniques to combat modern droughts. It forces us to ask a reflective question. In our race toward an uncertain technological future, are we sometimes simply rediscovering profound wisdoms that ancient cultures encoded into their stones and their stories? This perspective reframes their knowledge not as a forgotten relic, but as a living library of human ingenuity, one that continues to offer brilliant solutions for the challenges we face today. That profound sense of awe you feel under a starry sky is not a modern invention, but a deeply ingrained part of the human psyche. Our brains are hardwired for pattern recognition, a survival trait that helped our ancestors spot predators in the grass and predict seasonal changes. This same impulse, when turned upward, compels us to connect the dots of starlight into the shapes of hunters, bears, and swans. Cognitive scientists call this tendency pareidolia, the human propensity to see familiar patterns in random stimuli. It is the reason we see a face in the moon and constellations in the chaos of the night. This was far more than a celestial game of connect the dots. It was the very foundation of cosmic understanding. By imposing these familiar shapes onto the infinite, our ancestors transformed a vast, unknowable void into a populated, storied landscape, a celestial map they could remember, navigate, and use. This myth-making was a powerful form of cognitive processing, a way to encode complex astronomical data into memorable, transmissible stories that explain the world and our place within it. The predictable rhythm of the cosmos offered a profound psychological comfort. In a world of uncertainty, the unwavering return of the sun, the reliable phases of the moon, and the seasonal dance of the constellations provided a stable framework for existence. Psychologists suggest that this cosmic predictability directly reduced anxiety, offering a sense of order and control in a seemingly chaotic universe. The sky became the ultimate calendar and the original lawgiver, its cycles dictating the time to plant, to harvest, to migrate, and to celebrate. This need for order did not just shape our rituals, it shaped our minds. The very act of tracking celestial cycles may have co-evolved with human intelligence, honing our skills in memory, forward planning, and abstract thought. The development of mathematics and written law can be traced back to this fundamental drive to impose cosmic order onto human society, to create rules as dependable as the turning of the stars. Think of the last time you looked up at a clear, dark sky and felt a sense of smallness, yet also of connection. That feeling is the echo of a cognitive journey that began millennia ago, a journey to find our place in the grand narrative of the cosmos. This innate curiosity, this psychological need to find meaning in the heavens, is the true engine behind every astronomical discovery, from the first stone circle to the modern telescope. That celestial legacy now faces a new frontier, not of discovery but of ownership. The stars themselves are beyond claim, but the ancient stories and knowledge woven around them are increasingly caught in a modern ethical struggle. A corporation can trademark the name of a sacred constellation for a line of luxury goods. A tourism company can build a lucrative business around guided visits to a millennia-old astronomical site, while the descendants of its builders see little benefit and watch as the land is treated without reverence. This is the complex clash between knowledge as a universal human heritage and knowledge as sacred, living tradition. For many indigenous peoples, this star lore is not a historical artifact to be extracted. It is a vital strand of their cultural DNA, inseparable from their language, their laws, and their spiritual connection to the cosmos. An indigenous leader might explain that to share certain stories without context or permission is not education. It is a form of cultural theft, stripping the knowledge of its power and meaning. This has sparked a critical movement centered on a powerful principle: free, prior, and informed consent. This means that any outside group, whether a museum, a film crew, or a research institute, must seek permission from the knowledge holders before using their traditions, and that consent must be given freely, without pressure, after a full explanation of how the knowledge will be used. International frameworks like the United Nations Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous Peoples explicitly protect this cultural heritage from unauthorized exploitation. Consider the real-world debate surrounding the use of Aboriginal astronomical knowledge in a planetarium show. Is it enough to simply present the stories as beautiful myths, or must the presentation be guided by the communities themselves, ensuring the narratives are shared with the proper context and respect? Who truly has the right to control this celestial narrative? The scientific perspective often views knowledge as a universal commons, something to be shared and built upon for the benefit of all humanity. But this view can sometimes dismiss the deep cultural protocols that govern how and when sacred knowledge is shared. An ethicist would point out that this is not about locking away knowledge, but about fostering a relationship of mutual respect. It is about acknowledging that the source of this wisdom is a living culture, not a dusty textbook. So how do we navigate these waters? The path forward requires a shift from extraction to collaboration. It means scientists and institutions partnering with communities as equal stakeholders, ensuring that benefits are shared and that the people who preserved this knowledge for millennia are the ones who guide its journey into the wider world. This is not merely an ethical obligation. It is the only way to ensure this profound connection to the cosmos remains alive and intact for generations to come. The greatest discoveries about our astronomical past are likely still buried, waiting for the right tool or the right mind to uncover them. Picture a new type of ground-penetrating radar that does not just sense buried walls, but can read the faint chemical residue of ancient paints on those walls, revealing a star chart inside a tomb that has been sealed for 5,000 years. Or imagine a deep-sea robotic probe illuminating the streets of a sunken city, its camera focusing on a temple with sightlines perfectly aligned to a forgotten constellation. These are not scenes from science fiction, but the tangible frontiers of modern archaeology. The true purpose of sprawling earthworks like Poverty Point in Louisiana remains just beyond our grasp. Its massive concentric rings clearly held profound significance, but were they a giant calendar, a ceremonial center, or a model of the cosmos? We still do not know the full story encoded in the precise angles and dimensions of the Great Pyramid, a structure that continues to yield mathematical puzzles with every new survey. Leading researchers are now looking beyond the monuments themselves, merging astronomy with environmental science. By analyzing paleoclimatic data from ice cores and soil samples, they can reconstruct ancient weather patterns. This allows them to ask a revolutionary question: did a prolonged drought or a sudden shift in seasons force a civilization to refine its star charts in a desperate bid to predict the rains? Technological advances are the keys to these locked doors. LiDAR, which uses laser pulses to see through dense jungle canopies, has already revealed entire Mayan cities hidden for centuries. Artificial intelligence can process thousands of pottery fragments or satellite images, finding subtle patterns of alignment and design that would be invisible to the human eye. Specific enigmas call out for solutions. The breathtaking Venus table in the Dresden Codex shows the Maya could predict the planet's cycles with phenomenal accuracy, but the full origin of their complex calculations is still a mystery. The complete decipherment of the Indus Valley script, found on thousands of seals, could unlock an entire library of astronomical records from a civilization that left no other written history. The ultimate dream is a new Rosetta Stone, a single artifact bearing a known language alongside an undeciphered script. Finding such a key for the Linear, a script of the Minoans or the Rongorongo of Rapa Nui, could tear open a curtain, revealing lost chapters of humanity's celestial journey. What paradigm-shifting understanding of the universe is currently lying in a farmer's field, or at the bottom of the ocean, or hidden in plain sight within a well-studied text? The quest to understand the civilization that charted the stars is only just beginning. Their story, written in stone and shadow, is ultimately a testament to the immense power of the human mind. From the first stone circle erected on a windswept plain to the complex gears of the Antikythera Mechanism, this civilization demonstrated that our greatest instrument has always been curiosity itself. They harmonized their lives with the cosmic clock, built empires aligned to the sun and stars, and laid the intellectual foundation for every scientific discovery that followed. Their true legacy is not merely the monuments we can still touch, but the very concepts of order, time, and our quest for meaning that they embedded deep within our culture. This journey through their world leaves us with a humbling connection to those ancient watchers of the sky. It reminds us that true greatness is not measured by the sophistication of our tools, but by the depth of our observation and the boldness of our questions. If this exploration has sparked your own sense of wonder, we would love to hear your thoughts in the comments. For more deep dives into history's greatest mysteries, be sure to subscribe. The very stars they charted with such care still shine above us, guardians of a shared human past that continues to inspire